Hi, and welcome to the We Have So Much to Say podcast. This podcast is about topical issues and any issue that comes to mind. So this channel is going to be an audio podcast. So if you're really interested in listening to opinion pieces about specific topics, then subscribe to the channel because we're going to be talking about a whole lot of things. As you know, right now, there's so much going on in the world. It is absolutely ridiculous what is going on in the world right now. The whole Jay-Z thing, the whole P. Diddy thing. But today I want to talk about how I unequivocally believe that P. Diddy and Jay-Z are guilty of these crimes. You know, some of the things might be fabricated, and what I mean by that is some people might be coming forward because of a money grab. I do believe that is possible, because in situations like that, any woman or man can come forward and say that this happened to them in the year 2000 or in 1999. In those days, no social media. It's a lot easier to come forward and just say this happened to you if you were going to certain parties and you were having access to celebrities. I was an aspiring video vixen in, I would say, in the 2000s, early 2000s. I went to many auditions and many industry parties. You know, I wasn't the kind of person that would go and hang out with the rappers and all of that and, you know, sit in their apartments or hotel rooms. I wasn't that type of person. I was more kind of on the sidelines. Even though I did want to be in the videos, I never went to those sort of after party type of things, but I did go to the main industry parties. The thing about those main industry parties is that those industry parties, usually all the things that happen don't usually, like all the situations where people get hurt, usually they don't happen at the main industry parties. They usually happen at the after parties. That's where all the things go down. And I know this because I had several associates. I didn't call them my friends. They were girls that also were into videos at that time. And they would tell me what happens at those places. You know, the last straw for me, the reason why I decided I was never going to go to another industry party or even be part of any type of music industry at all, was when, and the thing is, around about that time, I wasn't just interested in being in music videos and stuff. I was also, at that point, writing for various publications at that time, music publications. I was doing a lot of music reviews. I would go to a lot of events, concerts, music festivals. I went to so many different events, and the last straw for me was, and the funny thing about this is that it wasn't even it wasn't even a big industry event either. It was a thing where, funnily enough, I was someone who could sing. You know, it wasn't like my ambition to be a singer, really, but, you know, I would sing under my breath sometimes and people would hear me and they'll be like, oh, you know, you've got a decent voice. And this happened on so many occasions, being told that I have a decent voice. So I started going to singing lessons, and my singing teacher was someone who had worked with a lot of celebrities. And I met someone at that singing lesson place where I used to do singing lessons. I met someone who was also doing singing lessons, and usually I would go to singing lessons with my cousin. We would go together. He's a male, and this time I went on my own. And I remember finishing my singing lesson and coming out to the living room area, because the guy used to do his singing lessons in his own house, and there was another guy sitting there, and he was like, hey, I haven't seen you around here before. And I said, yeah, I've been doing singing lessons for a few weeks now. but I usually come on a different day with my cousins. And he was like, oh, okay, cool. So we got chatting, and he said, oh, do you have a number? And he was asking me, like, what type of voice do you have and everything. And at that time, I was classified as a soprano. My voice was soprano. So I said soprano, but I never really believed it. So I used to say soprano, but, you know, I think my voice is kind of a cross between soprano and alto. And he was like, oh, okay, who can you compare your voice to? And I always used to say Brandy all the time. And he was like, okay, cool. If anything, we can link up if you want. I'm a singer as well, but I also produce, I make music, I rap. I've worked with a lot of stars. And he sort of named a few artists, like UK artists at that time that he'd worked with. And I was like, cool. So he called me a couple of days later and was like, do you want to come to the studio to lay down a demo, because I'm actually looking for female singers to collaborate with rappers at the moment, and I feel like from what the sound of what you said your voice is, you might be a good fit, but come down and we'll see. And I was like, yeah, but I'm not like a celebrity or anything like that. People don't know who I am. And he was like, it doesn't matter. He said, what we're actually doing right now is we're just, laying the vocals to see who we can actually connect with who. And you never know, you could be a breakout artist. And I was like, I don't really want to be an artist. I'm kind of doing this for fun. And he was like, doesn't matter, just come down. So I came down, met up with him, and I met up with him in a studio in East London. And this studio was quite a high-tech studio. I'd never been in a studio like that before, so I was quite, taken aback. Anyway, he had everything there for me to sing. He'd actually sang my part of the song and said, I'll just copy that exactly how it sounds. And I was struggling with certain parts of it, so he was like, just sing it in bits. So I was singing it in bits, and, it got to a point where everything was fine. We laid down the track. Everything was cool. And then he must have been like, do you want to have some lunch or something? Because, it was getting to about 4:00 and we hadn't even eaten anything. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to go home. If we're done here, I can just go home. I've got food at home. And so he said, no, it's cool. We can get some KFC. I can just go and get it from down the road, if you don't mind. So I said, cool, fair enough. So we sat there, had something to eat, talking, laughing, everything, and then he let me go. So this isn't the time when anything kind of like, this wasn't the time that made me sort of say, you know what, I'm done with the music industry. This was the start of a series of events that made me realise this was not for me. Once we had laid down the track, maybe about 10 days later, he contacted me and said, hey, everything is mastered and mixed. I want you to listen to it. And I said, can you send it to me, like in a file, like email? And he was like, just come down. It's nicer to kind of have a proper listening experience inside the studio with the, proper speakers and all of that. So I agreed, and I said to him, I'm going to bring my friend. And so he said, cool, bring your friend. So I brought my friend. She was also into like music industry stuff. And she must have been like, be careful though. We need to be careful though, because sometimes when these producers say you should come to their studio, sometimes it's a different thing that they want. So when we got there, he had alcohol there. He was like, oh, do you want a drink? And I said, no, I don't drink. I'm fine. I don't want anything. And he was like, oh, do you want something else to drink, like a lemonade or Sprite or whatever? And I said, fine. I had my water in my bag. I'm kind of wary about just taking someone's drink that's been in their apartment or in their room or in their office. It's just been sitting there. You don't know what they've injected it with. So I said, no, I'm good. It was different with the KFC because, it was just purchased. Do you know what I mean? So I just, I was fine with having that. But in terms of just something that's just been sitting in the room, I just didn't feel comfortable with it. So I said, no, I'm fine, I'm good, I don't want it. Anyway, so that night, my friend decided that she wanted to have a drink. So she ended up having some, like, alcohol. And I said, I actually told her that she shouldn't have it, but she had it. And that night she was so out of it, it was strange to me how drunk she was. And it wasn't just like, you know, like normal kind of drunk. It was like she was completely out of it, to a point where the next day she couldn't remember anything. And the interesting thing is that I actually ended up recording another track that night. And so she was just hanging out with a bunch of other people outside. There was not just her, there was another girl and some other guys there. So she was hanging out with them. And I was like in the studio, just, you know, laying down the track or whatever it is. And then, you know, by the time I'd finished, she was completely out of it. We ended up getting a taxi home. And it was very strange how drunk she was. So I asked her, I said to her, did you take anything else other than alcohol? And she said no. She said it was just like, she said that she was taking shots and some other drink, but she said that she's never felt like that before. So I started to suspect that maybe something, you know, was up. So I said to her, I think you should go to the hospital and get a blood test. And she was like, no, it's fine. And she refused to do it. But I just had a feeling that something had gone wrong that night. And so he called me to the studio again, and I told him, I'm not going. I don't want to go. So I didn't go. And then I didn't know this, but he had taken my friend's number and his friend had taken her number as well. And so she was going to the studio all the time. Like, she was also a singer as well. And she didn't even tell me that she was going to the studio. It was only later on down the line that I found out that she was going to the studio. And how I found out was that another friend of mine works at that particular studio. They're not like a video vixen girl, but they just work there. They sort of admin. And they said that they saw her there multiple times, and there was a few times where she was really, really out of it. And then there was a final situation where she ran out screaming and just ran out. And she was asking her, well, you know, what's going on? But she wouldn't speak, and she ran out. So I eventually asked her what happened, and she said that she was given a drink and she started to feel kind of woozy. And then she said that she had passed out. And then when she woke up, there was a man or one of the guys, and he was, you know, all over her. And so she just jumped up, screamed, ran. She said that she even left her bag there. So she had her phone in her pocket and a bus pass, and she left her bag with all her money and everything in there. And so I asked her, like, are you going to tell the police? And she said no, she's not going to call the police. She doesn't want to call the police. She doesn't want the police involved. And then she later on told me that the person who was doing that to her was a well-known celebrity, but she didn't mention. She said she doesn't want to mention the person's name. So I said, why? And she said that when she got up, he made a threat to her, and so she just decides that she's not going to speak about it again. She's not going to tell anything to anyone. She told me what happened, but she didn't tell me who it was. And I was asking for her for all kinds of clues, like who it was, and she said no, he's a very well-known UK artist. And from that moment on, I was like, I'm done. I'm completely done with, like, trying to do this music industry stuff. I was still doing the music writing and stuff like that, but I wasn't interested in doing singing or video modeling or anything like that. You know, and then to be quite honest with you, I have to be honest with you, I had absolutely no business even trying to do any of that stuff, to be honest with you, because I was, you know, around about that time, I was actually studying, and then towards the end of the time where I sort of stopped doing that, I actually had graduated university, so I really had no business going down that path in the first place. I should have just focused on my education, which I eventually did. Eventually got a job, and then you know, went down the path that I've gone down now. But I unequivocally believe that all these things are true. Majority of these things are true. Even if some of the girls are lying or some of the people are lying, some of them are speaking the truth. And I do think it is possible for people to capitalize on a situation by sort of saying, okay, you know, this happened to me as well, even if it didn't. You know, I wouldn't say it's the best thing in the world, to be quite honest, to do that. But it does open the floodgates when people start, filing civil cases to get money, monetary compensation. It opens the floodgates for more people to come out and do the same thing, which is what it is. But I feel like these things did happen, and they do happen in the industry, and it's not just the music industry, it's, Hollywood as a whole, the acting, movie industry, even in politics, even in, general corporate, environments. These things are happening, and these so-called big, powerful individuals are taking advantage of everyday people that are, putting themselves in dangerous situations anyway. I ask myself this question. I'm wondering, 13-year-old girl, what is she doing at a club with celebrities? You ask yourself this question, and I've heard some people saying that parents have fed them to the wolves, and that the parents know what's going on. I believe that's the case in many celebrities, and other people that aren't celebrities as well. But some parents don't know what's going on. Some parents actually do not know what's going on. Some parents believe that they've gone to a friend's house or whatever it is. But this is the reason why you need to stop your children from having sleepovers. Ban sleepovers completely. Ban sleepovers completely. Because, and I'm going to make another video about this, another audio piece about how sleepovers can end your child's life. And I don't mean it in the sense that they might necessarily, get killed, but your child could be abused while they're sleeping in someone else's home. And that's going to end their life because of the trauma, and they'll never get over it. They'll never be able to move past it. It can also end your child's life, in the sense that your child could end up going somewhere with someone and finding themselves in a detrimental situation. So these sleepovers, I just think that you should be very, very careful with allowing your child to go to all these sleepovers or do these sleepovers. Some parents will say, "Oh, I didn't know because my son or daughter was supposed to have been at a friend's house or whatever." Obviously, you can't watch your children 24/7, but I actually think it's important to not give your children so much privacy. This idea of our children deserve privacy, they deserve to have their own privacy and be able to do whatever they want and not have their parents invade their privacy, I think is complete rubbish. I think you need to invade your children's privacy. You have to do it to ensure that your children are not up to no good. And the thing is, you don't necessarily need to tell them that, I'm going to make sure I check through your phone or I check through your laptop or whatever it is. You shouldn't let them know, because they'll just erase things. You should just keep it on the DL and just go ahead and check, because you can save your child's life by actually making sure you have tabs. You keep tabs on the content they're consuming. You keep tabs on the messages they're sending out. You keep tabs on the kind of people that they're speaking to on chat rooms and all different kinds of platforms, Snapchat and all these platforms. I think that they need to raise the age of social media access. It's 13 years old. I think it's too young. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to We Have So Much to Say. I'm going to be posting a lot of audio pieces and talking about various different topics, what's going on now, general topics that I just feel like talking about. And I will chat to you soon. Bye.